The politics of moving migrants. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the conversation. I'm David Schuster. Thanks for joining us. It has now been a few weeks since Florida Governor Ron DeSantis flew more than 50 migrants from Texas to Martha's Vineyard, an island off the coast of Massachusetts. A lot of Republicans were happy with this move. In fact, Donald Trump embraced it, and Mitch McConnell said it should happen more often. So with so many Republicans lining up in terms of using migrants as human props, what does that really mean politically? And what, if anything, should Democrats be doing about this? Well, here to talk about it is Calvin Dark. He's a Democratic strategist. He's also the co-founder of RC Communications. Calvin, thanks for being with us. Have you been surprised by the Republican reaction?
Unfortunately, no. It just echoes the principles behind the policies that they've been pushing for the last few years. You know, it's cruel and inhumane, and I think we all remember that 4 years ago, 2018, it was a similar situation. It was the caravans. You know, for the 2-3 weeks before the election, the caravans were coming, and of course, we didn't hear anything else about them after it. So it's a different situation, but unfortunately, the same values and messaging.
And some of the messaging from Republicans is that they are so delighted to see sanctuary cities now somehow getting migrants that they weren't expecting. So there's an anger not just towards the migrants, but towards the people who welcome them with open arms.
Yes, because I think that the sanctuary cities, apart from where, whatever you may think about our immigration system, I think the principle behind sanctuary cities is what America's founded on, being a welcoming place. And I think this whole idea of, trolling democratic cities, shaming supposedly sanctuary cities. It's unfortunate because it has immigrants at the heart of it. But what I was pleased with was, if you take the example with Martha's Vineyard, where it was an attempt to troll and shame them with the sanctuary cities, these people actually came together and provided, necessary services and resources for these immigrants, which that backfired from Governor DeSantis. So that did make me feel good.
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of Republicans who said, oh, the Democrats wouldn't, sanctuary cities wouldn't do anything when these people actually got there. And in fact, no, people rallied around to support these people and make sure that they had a warm place to sleep and food to eat. We know that politically, obviously, this is a winner for, I guess, conservatives, the right wing. Democrats, I think, are justifiably hating sort of what Republicans are doing. But where does this cut politically in the middle with moderate and independent voters?
Well, I think it's going to cut two ways. I think the primary cut is going to be how these, using these migrants as pawns, how that reflects our principles and values as Americans. And I would think that there are more Americans, particularly independents, people in the middle, that would see that this totally does not go along with our values and principles. But the other way that it cuts, and this is gonna hurt the Democrats, is we haven't heard an articulated solution in the face of this crisis, which I think we should have. I understand that there's only so much you can put out before the midterm elections. I understand that the White House is gonna be putting out something, I think, after the elections. But I think that actually might be a handicap for Democratic candidates, because there hasn't been an articulated strategy of exactly how to fix our broken immigration system.
And without that articulated strategy, I mean, you talk to Republicans and they perceive that the door is wide open, that the border is wide open to anybody who wants to cross. And there doesn't seem to be any sort of even pushback yet from sort of the Democrats as to, no, we are trying to control immigration. What should the proper immigration policy be, both in terms of its morality, but also in terms of the politics?
Well, I think for me, and I'm from North Carolina, but I have lived and studied in 3 continents. And so I've been on the receiving end of how immigrants are treated. And I would expect, just as the countries that I lived in, how I followed a process, that we should have a process here too. But now it should be a process that's funded and staffed so that it's realistic. So I think that, give people who are already here, particularly the dreamers, a pathway to citizenship, and have a process that's workable, doesn't have years waiting in line for those who want to come here, and an asylum and refugee system that is also workable. Now, there's one more element to it which is really complicated, and that's border security. And I I think this is both Democrats and Republicans that I blame, more so the Republicans, and I'll tell you why. With the Democrats, because of the former president's "let's build the wall," a lot of Democratic candidates have shied away from talking about border security, strengthening the border, because under the last administration, it was so closely tied to ideas that were racist and xenophobic. But I do blame Democrats for not articulating that better. But with Republicans, I blame their rhetoric on immigration because, of course, they're always talking about build the wall, strengthen our border, but they do so in a way that reinforces that xenophobia and that racism, and they don't have anything after it. Because even Americans who think our border should be more secure don't think that we should build the wall and close the door, which is the only thing that I can gather Republicans have a plan to do.
It also feels like a lot of Americans felt, even if you support border security, there should not be this family separation policy that we saw during the last administration. That seemed to be sort of bipartisan outrage that people were being kept in cages and separated. It seems like the Biden administration has tackled that somewhat, but again, we haven't heard much about it.
Exactly, and that's unfortunate because we know, even though the situation, there are peaks and lows. Of course, during the COVID pandemic, there was obviously changes in the pace of migration, and it's picked up. We should be out there saying two things at once. That we have the principles that you mentioned that don't separate families, that don't do some of the horrible things that we saw during the last administration, but that also we're looking to fix this problem for those people who are here and those people who want to come. I personally am proud to live in a country where people are wanting to get here. And I honestly think that the immigrants that are coming, if we had a process that worked and was workable and reasonable, they would go through it.
There was a period about, and I guess going back to the Obama administration, when it seemed like there was a bipartisan comprehensive immigration bill that, I guess they called it the group of 12, the gang of 12 senators came together, and then it fell apart, in large part, I think, for politics. Have we gone away now permanently from the opportunity when Democrats and Republicans can put aside whatever provincial political issues they have and come together with some sort of bipartisan solution? Or if things become so partisan in Washington that now it's impossible to get that kind of compromise?
I had to go back and remind myself of that proposed compromise or proposed bipartisan partnership that you just mentioned, because think about that today. That doesn't even seem like it could be something that would be possible. And I think the reason is, and this is unfortunate, is that after the Obama administration, when we started talking about what can we do, deal with the Dreamers, to deal with our asylum system for refugees, the immigration system got tied to crime. It got tied to disease. It got tied to every ill that some people in some states, some leaders did not want to find real solutions for. And I think what's going to be hard is you do have some Republicans who are willing to work on, common sense immigration reform with Democrats. However, the problem is that too much of it has been joined to crime and these other issues that it makes it hard for people who are in the middle to take a stand to support immigration reform because of what their constituents have been told that means.
I wonder if there's a level of frustration also among so many constituents, voters across the country. When we were talking to people at a Trump rally the other week, a number of people said, look, we feel badly for the people who are crossing the border and all the hardships they're going through, but they love the idea, these Trump supporters love the idea that, yeah, maybe we should dump these migrants next to the White House or in a Democratic city. Not so much because they were mad at the migrants, but they just wanted some attention to this issue. And it feels like maybe there's some political power and leverage there.
I think so, and I think that regardless of where most voters stand on the issue of immigration. I think that the political stunts, particularly, with shipping people to outside of Vice President Harris's residence at rush hour. I mean, that's trolling. That's not leadership. And I have friends in Florida, and my second or third reaction was, why is Governor DeSantis spending my friend's tax money displacing people from a state that's not his? I think most reasonable people realize that's not a solution. It's political, using people as political pawns, and doesn't help us solve the problem.
Any idea how this is cutting politically among Latinos in particular? Are they just as horrified as a lot of Americans are when they see people being used as props, or do they have a different perspective?
I think that's going to be interesting, because one of the things we have to keep in mind is that the Latino community, the people who are, Latino Americans and those who are refugees or immigrants here, it's very diverse depending on where they're coming from. I think it's really interesting how the particular migrants that DeSantis was, sending to Martha's Vineyard were from Venezuela. I mean, it's a different community. I would hope that the Latino community would see that this does not benefit them. I'll tell you, as an African American, I often feel too, when I see these things, it's against brown people, and so I'm worried they're not sending me anywhere because I was born here, but that feeds into the racism and xenophobia that we've seen. And so I hope that the Latino community will not support this, and that we'll see that at the ballot box in November.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way this is going to cut politically is going to be intriguing because look, it's a high-profile moment when you are able to move migrants, and it's a political stunt. And yes, these people's lives, they're being used as props, but Republicans seem gleeful over the images that they're able to create with this. And so we'll see how it cuts politically. Calvin Dark, he's a Democratic strategist, co-founder of RC Communications. Calvin, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Good to be here.
You got it. Welcome back to the conversation. I'm David Schuster. The Guardian has just published a new report that has found that hundreds of thousands of residents in the city of Chicago, Illinois, could be drinking water that has enough toxic lead in it to cause serious health concerns. The two reporters behind this story are with us now. Erin McCormick, she's an independent data reporter for The Guardian, and Taylor Moore, she's a freelance journalist in Chicago. Erin, I want to start with you. What did the data show? What did you find?
Well, it showed very concerning amounts of lead in the water. About 1 in 20 homes had more lead in its drinking water than is allowed by the Environmental Protection Agency. And about a third of the tests we looked at showed levels above what is allowed for bottled water in the US. And federal officials have said that no amount of lead is safe. What's more alarming is the huge number of homes in Chicago that are connected to the water system with lead pipes. There's 400,000 homes in Chicago with lead service lines. That's about 80% of the housing stock. And if our results held for that whole population, that would be a very large number of people drinking low levels of lead.
And Taylor, for all of the thoughts that a lot of us have about cities like Flint, Michigan, which had the water crisis, we don't think of Chicago as being a city that has sort of decrepit pipes and lead water problems. Were there specific neighborhoods that you found that this was happening more in?
Yeah, we found that the prevalence of lead pipes was common, especially in low-income Black and brown neighborhoods across the city. 9 of the top 10 zip codes. Aaron found that 9 of the top 10 zip codes with the most lead were neighborhoods on the south and west sides of the city, which are majority Black and majority Latino.
What's been the reaction from those communities and also city leaders to your reporting?
There's a lot of frustration with the city. Advocates, the media here, residents have known this has been a problem for years. And Chicago, was installing lead pipes in the city up until 1986, which is decades after most cities had already outlawed the use of lead pipes. So it's been a problem for a long time, and I think people are really fed up with this public health crisis that's not being taken very seriously by the city.
And Aaron, it seems like a clear public health crisis, obviously for Chicago, but how common is this thing, or can we make any projections about how common this may be in other cities that have similar lead piping structures?
Yeah, it's not just a Chicago story, it's a national story. The Natural Resources Defense Council has estimated that up to 11 million homes in the US have these lead pipes. Chicago at least has run these tests for residents showing what might be in the water, but a lot of these places we don't know what these people are drinking, and many cities don't even know where the lead pipes are in their cities.
And Aaron, I seem to remember that the Biden 2021 infrastructure bill was supposed to address at least some of this, but I gather that the resources that were put in that bill are simply not enough to deal with a large majority of this.
Well, it's true that they won't be enough, but those resources have just been starting to get out there. So the money is now flowing to the states and the cities to start doing this work. But it's going to really take a major effort for these cities to mobilize to actually get these pipes out of the ground. And in fact, Chicago, we found, has only gotten 180 of its 400,000 lead service lines removed thus far.
Taylor, the people who are most susceptible to lead poisoning, those would be younger people, children primarily?
Yeah, lead is a neurotoxin. There's no safe level of consumption of lead. Lead can lead to lower IQs, behavioral disorders, intellectual disorders, and in adults it can also lead to kidney problems, increased blood pressure, and this also is exacerbated for pregnant women.
Taylor, what tipped off you and Aaron in terms of pursuing this story in the first place?
I think Aaron can speak to that.
Aaron?
We've been looking all around the country at some of the issues that are coming up with lead, and I had heard from some of the experts in this area that these lead service lines are going to be a huge push for our nation to get rid of, and Chicago has the highest number. So
when we talk about, for example, the city of Flint in Michigan, was that a very expensive fix? I mean, putting aside obviously the settlements and the payments to the families, but just in terms of the infrastructure, is that a very expensive haul?
It's expensive for any city, and I think that's why the Biden administration has been pushing so hard to at least start to address it with the infrastructure funds. Like Flint and many other cities. In fact, Jackson, Mississippi also has a big lead problem, in addition to the water problem that turned off the water there to residents for something like a month just recently. But there are many cities around the nation with these problems, and they don't have the resources. It's going to cost a lot, and it's going to take real action from those city governments even to take advantage of the federal money.
Taylor, you're a freelance journalist in Chicago. Chicago has always struck me as a very proud city, that it's a lot of pride and community pride in how it does things. It feels like this must be something of a huge sort of jolt to residents there, to have a city that is as modern and lovely as Chicago to suddenly realize they're dealing with something this terrible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the problem has been known for many years, but I think also our investigation helped brought this issue to the forefront, raising it to the level of this is a national emergency. This is something that we should all care about in the city and across the country. This lead problem is not unique to Chicago, but it is one of the worst. And in the city too, I think there is a lot of frustration with the lack of movement in replacing these lead pipes. There's the mayor Lord Lightfoot cites, the cost, the bureaucracy of replacing these 400,000 lead pipes, but there, it's still a lot of frustration, and the Chicago does pride itself on its proximity to Lake Michigan and its fresh water there. So it is a blow to for people living just like a couple miles away from the lake to not actually have clean water in their homes.
Aaron, a lot of people across the country are hearing this. They're probably thinking, "Oh my God, what about the water where I am?" Is there any predictability in terms of the type of infrastructure, the type of systems that can then predict whether or not a city, municipality is going to have to be dealing with something similar like this?
Well, the lead is at the individual homes, so you may have clean water coming through the mains to the home, or to just outside the home, but the smaller pipe that carries the lead from the water main to the home, it may be made of lead, and so people can check their connections by examining their pipes that connect to the water system, and to see, you can sometimes take a quarter and sort of scratch off a little bit, and if it's soft and shiny, that kind of indicates you may have some lead.
And if you do that check, Aaron, and suppose you find out, okay, I've got lead pipes, I imagine it's not that expensive to test the water levels, the lead levels, and find out whether your water's contaminated?
Testing is a great idea, and some cities are making that available to residents, and other places you can get a private test. Yes.
And then also, what though, Aaron? Let's just suppose right here where I live in Connecticut, lead pipes, and suppose we find that our water is contaminated. What do people do at that point?
Well, okay, there are some certified lead removal filters, so that's a good stopgap. But really the ultimate answer is to get rid of the lead service lines, and it can be very costly for homeowners. I think nationwide, they estimate it's about $5,000 per home, but in Chicago, they're saying that it can run up to $30,000. And a lot of times they're asking the homeowners to pay this money to do it themselves. So that's one thing the Infrastructure Act may change, is to bring some of that money to help these homeowners.
Taylor, in reporting out this story and putting it together, was there anything that surprised you along the way?
I think, as I mentioned before, I think the lead problem has been known for a while in the city, but I think Aaron's investigation into the numbers, into data that was publicly available on the Department of Water Management's website, the city kind of came back and told, after we ran the numbers, the city came back and told us that they never actually run an analysis of this information that was on their website, and this is 5 years worth of water test results.
So the city itself is not even running the numbers that they have available. That is remarkable. Aaron, I assume that now that you've done this, groundbreaking story, a lot more people are running the numbers, one would hope.
We'd like to find out how many people are actually testing their water now. And in a few weeks, we'll ask for that information again, and see if many more people are testing now to find out if their water is contaminated.
And Aaron, in general, have the city officials in Chicago, have they been very transparent since you've been working on this?
We've gotten almost nothing out of them, and I believe the mayor gave a major budget address the other day, and she didn't even mention lead.
Wow, that's frightening. Well, look, it's a terrific series, I guess, that you guys are going to have, because I imagine there'll be all sorts of follow-ups as they do start to talk about it and look at the numbers. And again, the headline is hundreds of thousands of people in the city of Chicago, well, they may be drinking water that is so contaminated with lead that they're going to face major health issues, and the health issues can run the gamut. Particularly susceptible are kids in the city of Chicago. Remarkable reporting. Erin McCormick, she is the independent data reporter for The Guardian, and Taylor Moore, she's a freelance journalist in the city of Chicago. Taylor and Aaron, thank you both so much for doing this and terrific work.
Thank you, David, very much.
And that'll do it for this edition of The Conversation. On behalf of Mark Gillespie, Gina Kim, Asher Cofield, and the rest of the gang at the Young Turks, I'm David Schuster. Thanks for watching.
Hey everyone, Matteo Scarapore here, author of Black Buck, which is Shop TYT's first fiction book ever. I'm honored. So, Black Buck is about a young man named Darren who's living in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. He lives with his mom, he has his girlfriend, he has his best friend, he has his neighborhood, and his neighborhood has him. Darren's also working at a Starbucks in Midtown Manhattan. And one day, this man, who's real suave and good looking, comes in and asks Darren to give him his regular. But for some reason, Darren says no. This man named Rhett Daniels, who's the CEO of a startup called Someone, located on the 36th floor of the same building, is impressed. And he invites Darren upstairs, and then he extends an offer to join his elite sales team. Darren reluctantly joins, and he soon realizes that he's not the only Black salesperson there. He's the only Black person in the entire company. So he goes through hell and back in order to make it to the top. And once there, he has status, money, power, but he says, you know what? I don't like being the token Black guy. So he hatches a plan to help other people of color infiltrate America's tech startup sales teams, redefining what it means to be a minority in the workplace. This book definitely, if you couldn't tell, touches on many things that are relevant to this moment that we're all living in right now, but it's also connected to the many moments in history that have come before today. I hope that you read it, I hope that you enjoy it, and if you want to order a copy, go to shoptyt.com. Thank you, be well, and happy 2021.
Breaking news with Brett Ehrlich. This is Brett Ehrlich with Breaking News with Brett Ehrlich. Bernie Sanders wants to break Wall Street, and he wants to break it real bad.
Hello, beloveds. I have a big announcement. I'm launching a new daily 1-hour show with the Young Turks called Unbossed with Nina Turner, starting October 17th. We are going to be taking on corruption in all of its forms, whether it's big money, big pharma, the injustice system, the establishment of both parties. All that we love is on the line. They keep coming for the people, not serving the people. Now we're coming for them. Anytime anyone, anywhere tries to take power from the people, that is where we will be together on Unbossed. And not only are we going to take on these people, we're also going to have a little joy while we fight. What is life without having some joy? The channel's already up, so go subscribe now, yes, right now at youtube.com/unbossedtyt.
I don't care if you're Christian. In fact, I will fight for you to have your religious liberty and practice your Christianity. I believe in that. I don't believe in Christianity, which means that you do not get to dictate the way I live my life based on your religion. I don't care what the Bible says. You have every right in the world. All those women who identify with your religion have every right in the world to not get an abortion, to not take birth control, but they do not have the right to dictate my life and what I decide to do with my body. I don't care about your goddamn religion. I'm so tired of having nonstop conversations about what the Bible says. You live your life in the way that you interpret the Bible. Again, I don't care, but you don't get to take the Bible and tell me, well, the Bible says this in this chapter, in this verse. I don't care. I don't care. I don't believe in it. And I have the right, based on our Constitution, to not believe in it.
right, well, the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian with you guys back in the studio. It feels like it's been forever. We got a great show ahead for you guys. More hypocrisy from Herschel Walker, of course. And one of my favorite stories of the day is one of the Scooby Doo characters gay? Let's debate tonight because America. Okay, so that ought to be fun. All right, Casper, what do you got for us?
Marijuana.
Where? I'm ready.
Kinda, you know. In my purse. You want me to get it?
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
You want me to smoke you out on the show?
Oh.
You probably don't want that. Anyway.
Dank Uygur.
Dank you. Has a nice ring to it. Okay. I'm into it. All right. Well, Joe Biden, full of surprises. All right. So Joe Biden has delivered on a campaign promise and has stated that he will pardon thousands of individuals who have been convicted federally for possessing marijuana. Now, simple marijuana possession is something that he plans on erasing from people's records, which is good news. He also is taking the first major step in decriminalizing pot and potentially taking marijuana off the list of Schedule I substances, which is huge. This is a big deal. Now, he made the announcement via Twitter where he writes, as I've said before, no one should be in jail just for using or possessing marijuana. Today, I'm taking steps to end our failed approach. Allow me to lay them out. Lay them out, Biden, lay them out. So here's what he says he's gonna do. First, I'm pardoning all prior federal offenses of simple marijuana possession. There are thousands of people who were previously convicted of simple possession who may be denied employment, housing, or educational opportunities as a result. My pardon will remove this burden. Let me pause for a second. This is great. I don't think that anyone should be denied a job because they were convicted of simple marijuana possession. That is insane. But I also think that if you've done your time and you've paid your debt to society, regardless of what the crime is, you should be able to get out of prison or jail or whatever it is and get a job. Like it's crazy that people are punished literally for the rest of their lives. Anyway, but let me continue. That's a little bit of a side note. Additionally, he will also encourage governors to take similar steps. Remember, we're talking about the president of the United States. He has control over federal convictions, but many people are still dealing with state convictions for marijuana possession. So he says, second, I'm calling on governors to pardon simple state marijuana possession offenses. Just as no one should be in federal prison solely for possessing marijuana, no one should be in a local jail or state prison for that reason either. And currently, marijuana is illegal under federal law because of the fact that it is a Schedule I substance or listed as such. Even as individual states have moved toward legal use for recreational and medical purposes, under the 1970 Controlled Substances Act, marijuana is listed on Schedule I, meaning it has no currently accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse. Cenk.
Yes, for those of you who've been watching a long time, what do I always tell you about how progressive the country is? And one of the ways that I prove that to you guys is by showing you right before an election, everybody goes progressive. Even Mitch McConnell, when he thought there was a small chance he might lose 2 elections ago, declared that he loved the Kentucky version of Obamacare. Funny, I thought you were trying to kill Obamacare all that time, right? And I can show you dozens, and in fact I have throughout the years dozens of examples. And here's another one. Joe Biden, first he goes progressive on student debt relief, and just like we told him, his numbers go up, of course. And one of the reasons is that when you have people who are mad about student debt relief, they're only a little mad. They're not gonna vote based on that. If you got $10,000 or $20,000 in student debt relief, you're gonna vote based on that. And his numbers among the young went up double digits, right? Now, another thing he'd promised young people was getting rid of marijuana as a Schedule I drug, and we're gonna get to the portions of the announcement related to that in a second, and doing these kind of actions. So now that he saw, progressives were right about student debt relief, that wound up helping me in the polls a lot. He goes to do the second step because this is also going to help him win elections. And then of course, just the general thing of not just the student debt relief worked, but they always go progressive before the elections. And remember, this is not primaries. This is general elections, because they know the overwhelming majority of the country actually loves all of these progressive proposals.
Yeah, I mean, imagine that, actually doing something for people and giving them a reason to vote for you or to vote for your party, as opposed to constantly leaning on the fear-mongering messaging about the Republican Party, which sure, do that too. I mean, I think that's legitimate, but at the same time, offer something to people. And so he mentions the marijuana classification in his third tweet, writing, "We classify marijuana at the same level as heroin," which is insane, "and more serious than fentanyl. It makes no sense. I'm asking Javier Becerra and the Attorney General to initiate the process of reviewing how marijuana is scheduled under federal law." And by the way, I mean, this is an issue that has widespread agreement across the country, across the political aisle. 91% of Americans overall would like to see marijuana be legalized. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Take a look at this Pew Research Center pie graph that gives you a sense of just how widespread the support is for marijuana legalization. Fewer than 10% of US adults say marijuana should not be legal at all. And that consists of like Dennis Prager and maybe 3 other people. Cenk.
Yeah, so remember why the war on drugs was started in the first place? One of Nixon's top aides says, it has admitted, this is a direct quote, "You want to know what this war on drugs was really about?" And remember, it started in 1970, as Anna just told you, under Nixon. He explained, "We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities." The war on drugs has always been political. It has been against black folks and the left in general. And so this is 50 years too late, right? But I'll take it, I'll definitely take it. Why didn't Obama do this? Why didn't Clinton do this? By the way, they both smoked pot and laughed about it, so did Kamala Harris. But they put away millions of people, not just those two, but all of these folks combined in a war against their own. And they were cowards through and through and constantly caved in to Republicans. And look at it, they barely move when it's 91%. How much clearer does it have to be? And the Democrats are like, oh, all right, we waited 2 years, it's right before the election, maybe we'll pick up a couple of votes. 91%, you sure? I don't know, Mitch McConnell's gonna yell at me.
No,
okay,
Jake,
and then they do
what Biden did is very, very bold. Okay, very, very bold. In fact, it's so bold that the youngsters are now calling him Dank Brandon. And the memes have begun. We got to look at them. Here's an example tweeted out by Don Moynihan. And I think it's a lot of fun. The idea of Joe Biden ending his day, like wrapping things up, taking a load off by smoking a blunt is pretty hilarious.
Yeah, there's almost no chance of that.
0%.
Maybe that's why the memory loss is happening. It turns out he loves it. He can't get off of it.
Yeah, right.
Okay, no, seriously, one last thing here. Look, it's many decades too late. Even more should be done. It should be legal everywhere. I can't believe they waited till 91%. All that notwithstanding, okay, we'll take it. Great job. All right, look at Biden delivering on student debt relief and on marijuana. It gives people a reason to vote. And so well played. Thank you. Super late, but we will definitely take it.
Well, we move away from a positive news story to take a deep dive into scandal.
Herschel, the Daily Beast has updated the story about your paying for a woman's abortion. The anonymous woman has now also alleged that she had a child by you. Your response?
That's right. Turns out that the woman who has alleged that Herschel Walker got her pregnant and then urged for her to get an abortion and paid for said abortion also shares a child with Herschel Walker. And before we get to Herschel Walker's response to that question, I think it's important to give you guys a little bit of context because the Daily Beast caught up with this woman who still remains anonymous to get her thoughts on everything that's transpired since the groundbreaking story broke earlier this week, how she feels about the way he's handled it. And the woman whose years-long relationship with Walker continued after the abortion said that her chief concern was revealing her name was because she was the mother of one of Walker's own children, and she wanted to protect her family's privacy as best as she could while also coming forward with the truth. Now, we learned about all of the secret children that Herschel Walker has, and apparently the child that they share together happens to be one of them. And we know that she says that, you know, she's tried to be a good sport. She's tried to kind of stay out of his campaign and the fact that he's trying to run for Senate, but she couldn't handle the fact that he kept pushing for legislation that would essentially do away with the right to get an abortion in any and all circumstances, even if a woman's life is in jeopardy, in danger as a result of the pregnancy. And so she says, quote, "I've been very civil thus far. I keep my mouth shut. I don't cause any trouble. I stay in the background, but I'm also not gonna get run over time and time again. That's crazy." So did Herschel Walker acknowledge this woman and the fact that they share a child together? How did he answer that question posed by Hugh Hewitt? Well, let's watch.
I know this is untrue. I know it's untrue, and they keep telling me things like that, and it's totally untrue. And I'm not sure why that will be told. I know nothing about any woman having an abortion, and so they can keep coming at me like that. And they're doing it because they want to distract people. I know that.
Right. Your longtime girlfriend it's a big conspiracy to distract people from what a wonderful campaign you're running. I'm sure that's what's going on. Cenk, this is the story that will not end.
Yeah. So of course, every Republican is going to vote for him anyway. They don't care. They've never cared about abortion. It's always been a lie. And so when they see that Herschel Walker did the equivalent of what? What do they call it? They call it murder, right? A lot of them are now trying to pass laws against not only doctors but women, and including women who had miscarriages. Okay, so and they say, oh, when it comes to women, now they hate doctors too. Oh, they treat just pandemics and they believe in vaccines and saving your life, and now they want to help women save their lives. No, boo, we hate doctors, we hate women. So now when Herschel Walker does the thing that they call murder, like, oh no, it's totally fine. No, he's one of us.
Yeah,
we're not trying to oppress him. He tells us all the things we want to hear about how blacks are no good and all these things, and he says he would oppress women too. Mission accomplished.
No, but I mean,
they literally don't even understand what we're talking about. What do you mean? They're like, what do you mean hypocrisy?
Dana
They're like,
Loesch,
he would oppress women like we want him to.
Just yesterday, Dana Loesch just gave the whole game away, and she was just like, don't care. She called this woman a skank. Okay, and then proceeded to say, I don't care, I would vote for him anyway, because then she lied and said, if Raphael Warnock remains in office, I mean, he wants to use our money to pay for everyone's abortion. She knows that's a lie. She knows that there's something called the Hyde Amendment, that taxpayer money doesn't go toward funding abortions. That's ridiculous. But nonetheless, it's not, again, as I said on the show yesterday, I've said it multiple times on this show, it ain't about abortion. The debate isn't actually about reproductive rights. It's about using that issue to accumulate power politically. And I think that everything that's transpired with Herschel Walker and a whole host of other scandals involving other Republican lawmakers, like Scott DeJarlais, a current Republican congressman who urged his wife and mistress to get abortions, they're all full of it, right? They don't care about it. They use it as a campaign tactic, and that's all it is.
Yeah, I mean, look, about Herschel Walker, the Republicans have never cared that he has clear, obvious mental health problems. In fact, he did an ad saying, I have mental health problems.
That's not the bug, it's the feature.
Yeah, and I'm sure that his poll ratings went up among Republicans. They're like, oh, he's crazy too. Ooh, just like Trump, we like this guy. And a pathological liar. He says, oh, this abortion totally untrue. Really? Later he said, well, I mean, if it did happen, kind of like OJ, we'll get to that in a second. So then, but like guys, he doesn't know anything And the fact that that doesn't bother Republicans is amazing. So I'm gonna give you one example. It's adjacent to this story. So they're asking him about this issue, and Georgia Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan has criticized them on this issue. I'm gonna read you his quote because it's fun. Remember, some of the Georgia Republicans are upset at Trump, so that's the context. He says, if we're being intellectually honest, this is a Republican Lieutenant Governor of Georgia. Herschel Walker won the primary because he scored a bunch of touchdowns back in the 80s, and he was Donald Trump's friend. Okay, so that is true. So then they asked Herschel Walker about it, and he says, oh, what's he doing now? And a reporter answers, he's the lieutenant governor. And then Walker says, yeah, but what is he doing now? Who's he working for? And the reporter's like, for the state of Georgia, he's the lieutenant governor. He doesn't understand that the lieutenant governor works for the state of Georgia. He doesn't know anything.
No, I mean, he'd fit right in. He'd fit right in with our Congress, with Senate.
Not the bug, the feature.
The feature, exactly. Now, let's get to other portions of the latest Daily Beast report, latest Daily Beast interview with this woman. She was asked about Herschel Walker's religious beliefs and whether or not he's actually sincere about how religious he is. And surprisingly, she says, no, he's pretty religious when it's convenient. Asked about the role faith played in Walker's life, the anonymous woman who identifies as a Christian herself said even though Walker often talked about Christianity, he uses it when it works for him, and he certainly has been talking about his faith quite a lot this week. She said Walker frequently talked about being a Christian, but never once expressed any misgivings about abortion generally or any regret about the one that they had. When she got pregnant again years later, the woman says she made a different choice, even though Walker said it still wasn't, quote, a convenient time for him. She says he didn't express any regret. That doesn't shock me at all. He said, quote, relax and recover. And that's the woman, of course, recalling the message, the get well card that Walker had sent her, along with the abortion payment. He seemed pretty pro-choice to me. He was pro-choice, obviously, she said. And finally, I want to give you another quote from her because I thought this was telling. She says, he didn't accept responsibility for the kid we did have together. That doesn't surprise me, especially since we didn't hear about these children until it came out through reporting. That says so much about how he views the role of women in childbirth versus his own. And now he wants to take that choice away from other women and couples entirely. So I think that it's brave of her to come forward because honestly, I have no doubt that her identity will probably be revealed at some point. And considering the amount of harassment Christian Walker has been dealing with recently from the Republican Party, I mean, instead of attacking Herschel Walker, they're attacking his son for being disgusted for what his father has been up to, how he's been lying. It's incredible. And if you see the kind of harassment he's dealing with, I have no doubt that if her identity is revealed, she's probably gonna deal with similar, if not worse, harassment. So it takes a lot of courage to come forward and share this story.
All right, so last couple of things. You mentioned Christian Walker. He speaking out against his dad. So here are some, here's a GOP official close to Herschel Walker. They told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that Christian Walker was, quote, a deeply disturbed kid with obvious issues of his own, who's a spoiled brat and is solely to blame if Herschel loses the race. So Herschel Walker's not to blame for getting the abortion and then being against abortion. His son is to blame for complaining that his dad had all these other kids and didn't tell him about it, wasn't helpful in raising him, in fact threatened violence against him. None of that is Herschel Walker's fault. It's his son's fault for complaining about what a monster his dad is. And he's just, but I want you guys to remember, the right wing loved Christian Walker a minute ago. Like literally, I went to New York, came back, and all of a sudden they went from loving Christian Walker, who does anti-gay, anti-black videos online all the time. They're like, yeah, that's right, we got a gay guy who's, I don't know if he's still, I don't know what he's pretending to be, but he's obviously gay. And it's, oh, but he hates gay people. Yeah, we love that kid, right? Oh wait, he spoke out against one of our candidates, a spoiled brat, mouthy. In fact, I love that quote. I mean, this is old school South.
Yes, it is.
Okay, right around the conservative site, Red Site called Christian, quote, a mouthy, ungrateful little punk. In other words, hey, we were helping him with his career as long as he said the right things.
As long as he was a tool for the Republican Party, yes. And then finally, again, Herschel Walker gives the whole game away in this one statement during his interview with Hugh Hewitt, how he actually feels about abortion, whether or not people should feel any shame about it. Let's watch.
If that had happened, I would have said it, because there's nothing to be ashamed of there. People have done that, but I know nothing about it. And if I knew about it, I would be honest and talk about it. But I know nothing about that.
I mean, if it had happened, there's no shame in it. I mean, I want to ban it, even in instances where a woman's life is in danger due to complications from that pregnancy. I would ban it. But there's no shame in it. I mean, I think it's murder, but there's no shame in it. I mean, this guy doesn't even know what he's talking about. And the idea of him being elected into office in an incredibly powerful institution like the Senate blows my mind. Having such a significant say over the personal lives of Americans all across this country, having a say over what I can do and can't do with my own body, insane, knowing what his history is. Knowing that he tries to take this mantle of self-righteousness, when in reality, I mean, all these children that he was trying to keep secret, paying for abortions while purporting that abortion is murder and it should be completely banned. I'm so sick of these disgusting, egotistical, power-hungry narcissists running for public office. We don't need them. We need actual leadership, people who want to look out for their fellow Americans, not these power-hungry lunatics. Sick of it.
Unfortunately, there isn't much we can do about it because Republican voters love them. They love pathological liars. They love people who don't know anything about government, anything about the job, and people who are, who have mental health issues. They can't get enough of them. So, mainstream media and others will say, Jank, you can say bad things about Herschel Walker, but you cannot say it about the beloved Republican voters. Really? The overwhelming majority of them are about to show that they're going to vote for Herschel Walker and not give a damn. I mean, how much clearer did he have to make? Now, if I had known about it, it would be no big deal. There's no shame in it. I mean, is there any shame in murder? I mean, if I had murdered 7 people in their sleep earlier, there's no shame in it. There's no shame in it. No, by you saying we should pass a law that a woman cannot get an abortion, even if she raped, even if she suffers incest, you're saying there's shame in it. That's why you pass a law against it, right? But of course, with conservatives, what is their number one priority? Themselves.
Power.
So they're like, hey, when I got an abortion, it was convenient for me to pay for that abortion. I was super happy about it. My life was better. Now my life is better when I lie about my stance and get hateful Republicans to vote for me. So he's like, I don't even see the issue. So there they are, and the Republican voters go, amen, amen. We love/hate abortion. We're voting for Walker.
Yep.
Doesn't have to make sense. They're Republicans.
When we come back from the break, Ben Shapiro tries to defend Herschel Walker, and it turns out to be a major dud. We'll give you that argument and more, including a breaking news story about the Proud Boys and their sedition charges related to January 6th.
Ooh.
Come right back.
I am scary. I am threatening. I'm Darth Vader.
All right, back on TYT. Food for Thought Trivia is back. I'm gonna start rewarding comments with $100 Blue Apron gift cards as well. 150 people won a $100 gift card last Friday. So make sure you're participating. You gotta watch the show live throughout the day, okay, throughout the week. And then on Friday, we ask you a trivia question in the bonus episode that only the members get. And so this is just for members, but man, does it pay. Tons and tons of you are gonna get free $100 gift card. You don't have to put your credit card info in. It's a true gift card. So it pays to be a member, literally. Also, Unbossed with Nina Turner starting in just about 10 days. And you guys got to go subscribe. We're almost there. We need 10,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel, and we're just a little short, 1,500 short. So let's make that happen right now to get going. YouTube.com/unbossedTYT. YouTube.com/unbossedTYT. Takes about 5 seconds to subscribe to that. Okay, now I'm going to the members. Biden flavor Corn Pop writes in, fire, Jenk, fire, and a fire are back. Those are all fire emojis because it's obvious. The show's on fire with us. The dragon who says knee says to presumably Biden, now do mushrooms. Wow, man. Okay, one thing at a time, okay? Effecto says, I'm
Come to California, everything's legalized.
Yeah,
See how that works out for you.
Yeah.
Not so great.
Yeah. That's a different story. Okay, yeah. Effectos writes in, I'm thrilled that marijuana might be possibly rescheduled, but Biden must be really hoping no one remembers that he wrote and championed the 94 crime bill. Look, people remember that. Well, some people remember that. The mainstream media kept that under wraps during the primaries, but that's clear. But at the same time, credit where credit is due. This is partly goes to tiny bit of amends here, and he gets to make the amends as president. So God bless. Anytime he's doing something well, right, we're happy to have it. Connor says, welcome back, Cenk. Now we have two people with great hair hosting TYT. Look, the people are saying it, I'm not saying it.
Damn.
Okay, Tuck Cucker Farlson writes in, I'm sure Biden will find an excuse to backpedal as soon as conservatives yell at him. Given the benefit of the doubt, for now, if he does backpedal, yes, we'll of course tell you and be furious, and we'll go through that rigmarole every time. Funkin' for Fun says, weed leads to jazz. Jazz leads to jazz musicians. Think about it. I'm still thinking about it, I'm not sure what it means. All right, Uriah Heath.
I think this person is into jazz musicians, like sexually.
Oh. That's interesting.
Jazz,
I thought that
jazz is sexual.
That's fascinating assumption. I thought the reverse. I thought they were saying, be careful. Like, Lisa, watch out for that jazz musician.
Maybe. Okay. Which, if that's the case, I get it.
Watch out for that jazz man, Lisa. Get a random Simpsons reference. All right, we'll be back. Back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. We got more news.
We do have more news, including conservatives twisting themselves up into pretzels trying to defend Herschel Walker. And we begin with Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro has finally decided to weigh in on this big scandal involving Georgia Senate candidate Herschel Walker, a Republican who wants to ban abortions in any and all cases, including when a woman's life is in danger from the pregnancy. Now, it's interesting because he's attempting to defend Herschel Walker and specifically defend him against accusations of hypocrisy. He says, quote, it is so very telling that the supposedly horrible thing that Herschel Walker did, according to the media, was support the pro-life position, not knock up a woman and pay for her abortion. Because if he were pro-choice, this would not be a story. Yes, Ben, if he were pro-choice, this would not be a story because Walker wouldn't be a hypocrite. So for Ben Shapiro, who I think is genuinely a conservative, a person of faith, and I think genuinely thinks abortion is wrong. I don't think he's one of these people who uses it as a political tool. For him, it's immoral. And the biggest issue here is that Herschel Walker actually paid for an abortion. But for everyone else who lives in reality and doesn't think in the same religious way that Ben Shapiro might think, it's actually worse that Herschel Walker wants to ban abortions for everyone, including in cases where a woman's life is in danger, meaning she could die from the pregnancy, when his past includes a situation in which he urged a girlfriend to get an abortion and then funded that abortion. That hypocrisy is particularly disgusting.
Well, I mean, this is hilarious in a couple of ways. But first of all, Well, if you're right, Ben, and you think the real issue is the underlying policy, and Herschel Walker paid for an abortion, and you care so much about that underlying policy, well, then you would obviously be against him. I mean, he's a deeply immoral person. It's not my faith, it's your faith. It's not my ideology, it's your ideology. So since you think Herschel Walker is deeply, deeply immoral and basically paid an assassin to kill his unborn child, why would you support him?
I mean, she should be urging Republican voters in the great state of Georgia to vote against him, right?
Yeah, I mean, is it a life or isn't it? I don't think it's a life. So if someone who doesn't think, hey, I also don't think the cells in my knee are an independent life form. So if someone gets if I get knee surgery, I'm not a hypocrite. It's not an issue, right? But if you say, oh my God, the cells in my knee are the biggest life in the world, we must protect it, and you dig it into your knee 24/7, yeah, you're a hypocrite. Like, how is this a difficult thing to understand? But they have to do these word salads to try to make the, something that is indefensible appear to be defensible, but just confusing their audience. Because his audience is gonna read that and be like, I don't understand it at all, but I think I'm supposed to vote for Herschel Walker even though he paid for an abortion and we theoretically hate abortion.
Let me give you the second tweet in this thread where he writes, the hypocrisy charge, as always, isn't about the personal immorality of someone's activity, and it's immoral as all hell. It's about undermining the actual moral standard they violated. But Ben, that's your morality. This is my problem with conservatism, right? Their morality is derived from their religious doctrine, which is great. If that's what you believe, you should be able to believe that. You should have the liberty to believe that. You should live your life as you see fit based on that religious doctrine that you have so much faith in. Great. But your definition of morality is very different from what the vast majority of Americans feel about this very issue of abortion, where you have, depending on which poll you're reading, between 70 to 80% of Americans who do not want to make abortion illegal in America. So you're actually in the minority. I think they're kind of, I don't know, in the dark about that, unaware of that. And they seem to forget about the fact that your morality is different from other people's morality. Your version of what life is different from what, honestly, doctors and scientists believe, but what the vast majority of Americans believe as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of humans do this, to be fair to them, but conservatives especially are so egotistical. They think, well, the whole world revolves around me, doesn't it? So here, I'll give you an example, an analogy that might be easy for you to understand. So Shapiro thinks, well, I think abortion is immoral as all hell. By the way, I'm gonna vote for Herschel Walker anyway. He doesn't live in Georgia, but I guarantee you, he's like, Herschel Walker all the way, baby. He's as immoral as hell and I love him for it. Okay, let's put that, no, you're just pointing out my hypocrisy because of word meat salad. Okay, but guys, okay, so you say it's really immoral. I think it's like knee surgery. I don't care, I don't think abortion is immoral at all. I don't think it's 1% immoral. There's absolutely nothing immoral about it. They're like, no, you can't think that. No, I can think that. I also think that drawing the Prophet Muhammad is not immoral. Muslims think it's really immoral. And they're like, how dare you draw the Prophet Muhammad? But wait, I'm not in your religion. I don't think it's immoral at all. I don't think it's 1% immoral. And Ben Shapiro would look at that and go, obviously, look at these dumb Muslims thinking that drawing the Prophet Muhammad is immoral. But me, I think the equivalent of knee surgery is the most immoral thing in the world. So how dare you not think like me?
No, but okay.
But we don't. And we live in a democracy.
So I don't actually believe this or think this, but I want to make an argument. And I would venture to say, I don't know for sure, but I'm gonna speculate that Ben Shapiro would be against what I'm saying. So my mom, for instance, in order for her to live, in order for her to survive, she desperately needed a kidney transplant. Now humans can survive on just one kidney, right? You don't need two, you can survive on one. In order to save human lives, which is the most important thing in the world, we should have a government program that forces people to donate kidneys. Since you can live with one, we should save lives by donating one of our kidneys, right? And there are a lot of people on that waiting list to get a kidney transplant. So should we do that? I mean, if
I think we should take Ben's kidney. I'm not kidding. Like, so he thinks, well, in order to save a life, I can totally imprison you for 9 months, make you carry a rapist baby, and then take care of it for the rest of your life. Well, taking your kidney, which you don't need, is nothing compared to that. And who's doing it? You're asking the government to kidnap that woman and to force her to go through all of that, right? So why can't the government kidnap you and take your kidney?
To save lives.
It's to save lives, Ben. It's to save lives. And by the way, the kidney would actually save a life and not a zygote and a clump of cells.
And by the way, the reason why we know he wouldn't want to do that.
Because it's his goddamn kidney.
No, because, yes, because it's his goddamn kidney. You're correct about that. But also, I mean, we have evidence of how over the top angry conservatives got over mask mandates, which is nowhere as invasive as undergoing surgery to donate a kidney to someone who needs it to survive. By the way, my mom's fine. She did get a kidney transplant from a wonderful person named Jordan, who happens to be a wonderful Christian. But nonetheless, I just think that these arguments are so hollow and so ridiculous, and it just blows my mind that they put it out there and there's some portion of the country that's like, yeah, this totally makes sense. Just give yourself a moment to really think about it critically.
Yeah, and look, my morality says that we should take your kidneys to save other lives. Now, by the way, I'm not gonna give you my kidney because I get to be a hypocrite all day long. And I'm just being a Republican, right? No, you don't get my kidney. But we're taking all your kidneys, okay? Would you agree to that? Of course somebody would agree to that. But when it comes to women, they're like, oh yeah, just make them carry it inside their body for 9 months and then have them take care of it for 18 years. And they think, what's the big deal? They're not me. And I kind of like oppressing them. Keep it real, that's what this is all about.
When we come back from the break, we've got a breaking news story about the Proud Boys and the sedition charges they're facing due to their involvement on January 6th. We'll be right back.
You know our wonderful sponsor, Aspiration. They don't put your money in fossil fuel companies, et cetera, when you deposit there, unlike the big banks that have put in nearly $4 trillion to destroy the planet. So have clear conscience. By the way, they can also erase your carbon footprint. And they're doing it for me. When I look behind me, I'm like, where'd it go? Where did my carbon footprint go? Gone. Aspiration.com/TYT. Aspiration.com/TYT. All right, let's go to YouTube members. Actually, before that, on Twitch, AJ and Esther, Anna versus Jenkin, a smoke off live on stream.
No chance.
It must happen.
0% chance. That'll never happen.
No. So we got to be really careful about what we say on air. And then I'm not sure that being high is the best way to do that. So maybe not the best idea. I get that it could be fun, but not the best idea. Beaver Eggs 69 says weed should be treated the same as alcohol. Of course, that's true. Felicity 91 says, side note, Loving Anna's top today, perfect for the lovely fall season.
Thank you. It's actually a dress from the 1950s.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a vintage dress.
Oh, fun for everybody. Moonchild Dragon, but I thought maybe she was referring to your bun. I don't know, maybe no, top, yes, you're right. I don't know what I'm talking about.
What's so fall about my bun?
That's what I was wondering. I was like, wait, why is a bun fall? I swear to God, that's what went through my head.
Just move on.
I'm moving on. Yeah. Moonchild Dragon says, Janko Unchained. There you go, that's right, we should bring that back. There was one I really wanted to, somebody rated us. I want to give them, Vitingale rated with a party of 503. Vitingale, you're awesome. Thank you for doing that, we appreciate it. Olivia writes in, Dank Brandon strikes. Now we're on YouTube members. I died in a time machine writes, blunt sesh live on air. No.
Look at you guys.
Yeah, okay.
Look at you guys. I mean, look, maybe one day when we're not doing the news anymore and like our jobs aren't as serious. Our jobs are too serious. If we did like a non-serious show, and I'd have fun. Why not?
One of my friends today said, "Oh, I'm commuting more for work, so I want you to listen to podcasts left and right. I listen to the old school podcast." He's like, "Damn, you guys are funny. I didn't realize how funny you guys were." So maybe on an old school once we're retired, okay?
Yeah.
Evil Vacuum, by the way, has a good idea. Got my Brandon Blunt's trademark ready. Not such a bad idea. Okay, think about it. Sandra Avalos says, "I love Dank Brandon. Lovely prices. Ben Shapiro's Jewish. Judaism does not forbid abortion. Plus, woman's birth as person's life takes precedence in Judaism." So that's true, but remember, Ben Shapiro's audience is not predominantly Jewish. It's fundamentalist Christian. So just like Dennis Prager, they pretend, in a sense, like yes, they're clearly Jewish, but they support right-wing Christian evangelical priorities and policies as opposed to their own traditions.
Isn't that wrong, like toward your religion though? I don't know.
Immoral. Back on TYT, Jen Canana with you guys. Forward.
Well, we've got a breaking news story on the individuals charged in the January 6th riots, and this is a pretty big one, so let's discuss. A lieutenant of longtime former Proud Boys chairman Enrique Tarrio has now pleaded guilty to sedition charges. His name is Jeremy Bertino, 43-year-old from Belmont, North Carolina, and he is a potential key witness who could be cooperating and testifying against other members of the Proud Boys, including Enrique Tarrio. And so he is, in fact, the first member of the Proud Boys to officially plead guilty to seditious conspiracy for his role in the January 6th Capitol riots. And this is a pretty big deal. Now, since he has pleaded guilty, he might get some leniency when it comes to sentencing. The Proud Boys are facing trial for their role on January 6th in December of this year, so in a couple of months. And this is pretty big news. I've got more details in regard to what Belmont's role was on that day and the kinds of weapons he had on him on that day. Before I get to that though, Cenk, I wanna hear from you.
Yeah, so you will still see to this day, in fact, we do interviews like this all the time with Trump supporters. You can check them out on Rebel headquarters, where they'll say, "Oh no, it's Antifa," or they were tourists, or they were doing no big deal. And then you will see someone from the Proud Boys say, "Yes, I'm guilty of sedition. I did it, and if I don't confess now, I'm going to get a lot of time in prison." So obviously they're taking a plea deal here, and they're probably turning evidence against the others. But you do not admit to sedition unless you did sedition.
And Cenk, what is sedition? I think it's important for people to like understand how serious that charge is.
Yeah, and it's actually like relatively simple. It's very easy to understand in this context. So it is an act of against the government, right? Saying I'm defying the government. I will not listen to the government's rules, and I'm acting against the government, otherwise known as America, right? And in this case, it's super easy to understand because they attacked America's capital. Imagine if a foreign country had sent thousands of people to attack America's capital. We would have already invaded them and bombed the bejesus out of them and probably killed a couple 100,000 people. So they just happen to be internal, but it's sedition. Well, and when it's a foreigner, it's not sedition, they're just simply attacking us. When it's someone inside the country, it is sedition against your own government and against your own country, right?
Right.
And so it is a very serious charge. And with all the money that the right wing has to defend these folks, if they didn't commit sedition, it'd be super easy to get off. The evidence has to be overwhelming, and it obviously is. And it is the Proud Boys, it was the right wing, unquestionably, and they have admitted it. Obviously, that won't change anybody's mind in the right wing because they hate facts, but these are facts.
So what he pleaded guilty to, I think it's important to understand the wording of it. So from December of 2020 to January of 2021, Bertino, quote, did knowingly combine and conspire and agree with the Proud Boys leaders and other persons known and unknown to oppose by force the authority of the government of the United States and to delay by force the execution of the laws governing the transfer of power, the 2-page charging document alleges. So again, that is what he pleaded guilty to. And what's fascinating about this is his role in the prosecution of other members of the Proud Boys, including Enrique Tarrio, and in a sign of the sensitivity and potential importance of his testimony, prosecutors have agreed that if he provides substantial cooperation, they would seek leniency in sentencing and could enter Bertino into a Justice Department witness protection program. So there is some concern about his safety if he does engage in cooperating with this trial and this investigation. And if you're wondering, well, what was his role within the Proud Boys? Was it a big role? It absolutely was. Bertino held a place in the top inner circle of the Proud Boys, and he's been accused of, again, conspiring to impede Congress with angry Trump supporters. He apparently, Bertino's home in North Carolina was searched in March at the same time that Tarrio was arrested on charges that he had at least and at least 4 others had directed, mobilized, and led a crowd of 200 to 300 supporters onto Capitol grounds. Many in the crowd are accused of leading some of the earliest and most aggressive attacks on police and property. And by the way, Bertino was caught with all sorts of weapons. He allegedly possessed 2 pistols, a shotgun, bolt-action rifle, and 2 semi-automatic AR-15 style rifles with scopes. Bertino was convicted previously, by the way, back in 2004 of first-degree reckless endangerment in New York State, which is a felony. He was sentenced to 5 years of probation with a period of local jail time.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing, right? Like, in 2004, we didn't have any leniency in our justice system at all. You'd hear stories about people being locked away for decades over their 3rd strike, which wasn't even a violent crime. You hear about what he did in 2004, first-degree reckless endangerment. It's like, we'll give you 5 years of probation.
Yeah. No, look, that's why the right wing is so shocked that the law is actually being applied to them now. It's almost never is. And so, but in this case, with the January 6th insurrection, there was 3 different levels of people, and he's in the 2nd level. So there's the foot soldiers. The prosecutors are going after all those folks with a heavy hand because they're regular Americans. So you can actually apply the law to them, even if they're right wing, because this was over the top and it threatened the establishment, right? Then there's the lieutenants and captains. Those are the organizer of the riots. Those are the Proud Boys leaders, the Oath Keeper leaders. And they're being charged with heavier charges like sedition because they're organizing the disruption of the authority of the government, right? And so that's what's happening here. And so the Enrique Tarrios and Stuart Rhodes, who's the head of Oath Keepers, et cetera, appear to be in a lot of trouble given guys like this flipping. But if you'll notice, as we've said throughout, there is not a single general that has been charged, right? So the people who actually organized the coup, the fake electors, et cetera. Now you've got Navarro and Bannon up on other charges, but not on this. And a lot of it has to do with contempt, et cetera. Trump's up on nothing, of course. He's the lead organizer. Roger Stone's got no charges against him. So all the people who actually organize are in the elites. And so the Justice Department is much more wary of going after the elites. So that's why the bigger organizers have never faced any consequences, and I'm not sure they ever will.
Well, we'll see what happens in December as the trial begins, against the other members of the Proud Boys. But I think the point you made earlier, Cenk, is the most important point, which is if you pay attention to these prosecutions, if you pay attention to the identities of the individuals who are being charged and convicted, it's not Antifa, it's not Black Lives Matter, it's not a group of foreign tourists who are just having a delightful walk through the Capitol. These are individuals who very much thought they were going to overturn the results of our democratic process and essentially hand victory over to Donald Trump, even though he did not win the election. And that says everything.
And they're all right-wingers, and the people giving the evidence about them are also right-wingers.
Yeah, exactly. Well, since we're on this anti-democracy trend, why don't we keep going at it?
They stole the votes. The Dominion voting machines stole the votes. And George Soros, Mark Zuckerberg, paid $400 million to flip the votes.
Do you think that it was a stolen election?
I would say so, as what I have known so far of what I've read and researched.
When you look at the entirety of the Republican electorate and you see that a huge portion of them refuse to accept the fact that Donald Trump did in fact lose the 2020 presidential election, it's a little terrifying when you also take a look at the Republican candidates who are running for office and who are very likely to win positions of power that could undermine our democracy. And this was a story that the Washington Post put out. It's an analysis of these GOP candidates and just how many of them keep repeating, perpetuating the big lie that the election was stolen from Donald Trump. They write that a majority of Republican nominees on the ballot this November for the House, Senate, and key statewide offices, 299 in all, have denied or questioned the outcome of the last presidential election. This will probably scare you even more. 174 are actually running for safely Republican seats. Another 51 will appear on the ballot in tightly contested races. And most of them, look, most of them are expected to win. That's what's so terrifying about this. So you take a look at the electorate, you take a look at the candidates that are likely to win. If Republicans take hold of the House, we should be very concerned. In fact, there are already scores of election deniers in the House. 139 of them voted against the Electoral College count after the violence of January 6th had finally abated. But with 37 election deniers who are not incumbents running in safely Republican or competitive House districts, that number will almost certainly rise after November. Cenk, I'm actually really worried about the future of this country, right? So we could talk about policy all day long, but the underlying democratic process is what I think is gonna be dismantled slowly but surely. We're seeing it before our very eyes, and I'm not trying to be hyperbolic, I'm not trying to fearmonger, I'm giving you the numbers here. It's pretty scary stuff.
Absolutely. So this is why I get frustrated with Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi and all the other Democratic leaders who keep saying the majority of Republicans are wonderful, awesome, reasonable people, but we've got a small minority who are ultra MAGA who are creating problems. No, it's the majority. So first of all, the number was 139, as Anna explained to you, that already challenged this election. Now it's very likely to be at least 174 because those are safe seats that the election deniers are running in. And it is now 56% of Republicans, not in the country, not the voters, but actual officials who, almost all of them, outside of a handful of lunatics like Paul Gosar and Louis Gohmert, et cetera, almost all of them know that the election was not at all stolen, that Trump lost 60 court cases in a row because he presented zero evidence. They all know it, but 56% of them say, no, we deny it. And we think Biden lost and Trump won. I'm surprised it's only 56%, but that is the majority of elected Republican officials in the House of Representatives. So yes, the majority of Republicans that now say, we don't give a damn about democracy. We're gonna keep power. Remember, for a lot of the Republican voters, they actually believe the election was stolen. So you could say that's crazy, and I say that's crazy, right? But I mean, you saw them, they think Mark Zuckerberg took it.
Although I will say, even though that woman, seems to have some issues, the Mark Zuckerberg is pretty clever.
Yeah, that's why he has $400 million. He's got a lot of Zuckerbucks.
A lot of Zuckerbucks.
Okay, now they never explain why Mr. Zuckerbucks doesn't turn around and then buy all of Congress. Why would he let the Republicans win anything?
Right, exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
Let alone have the majority all the time. They just, under Trump, the first 2 years, they had the White House, they had the Senate and the House. Why did Zuckerberg allow that?
No, man. I mean, Zuckerberg looks at McConnell and is like, that's the homie. I'm gonna keep him in charge.
Yeah. Well, actually, of course, in reality, Mark Zuckerberg appears to be a Republican, and certainly on all economic issues supports Republicans and seems to favor Republicans on his platform. But he is Jewish and he does run a social media organization, and so is George Soros. So here they are, the two people she named happens to be Jewish.
I wonder why.
I wonder where she got that from. Right-wing media that's constantly mentioning Jewish names, secretly controlling politicians. That's a very old anti-Semitic trope that has been around for hundreds of years and usually leads to massacres. Okay, so now back to the serious situation at hand. Oh, by the way, just real quick, for all those hilarious videos with Trump supporters, go to Rebel headquarters. Michael Schur did like 7 of those videos. They're amazing. Okay, now, it's not just the politicians. Look, I was just at Yale. I did a debate there at the Political Union. It was wonderful, great, terrific students. But we started discussing what the different students believe. And now this is a little bit anecdotal, obviously, right? But you're seeing it in media as well, and we've tracked that for you guys. I even interviewed the original right-wing philosopher who came up with the idea of being in favor of a monarchy here in America.
A dictatorship. Let's stop calling it a monarchy, a dictatorship.
Yeah, and I asked for clarity from the students too. And so they said a certain portion of the left wing, by the way, is getting more radicalized. That's interesting too, and that might come back to haunt us. And then you've got your regular set of folks in the middle, and then you've got now a significant portion of the right wing students who believe in that they call themselves monarchists.
Insane.
That's basically like a sanitized word for dictatorship. That's exactly what a monarchy is. It's not a little like a dictatorship. It's exactly like a dictatorship.
So, like, do they understand? Like, these students go to Yale. Like, they go to Yale. Like, what happened? We're not winning with our education. We're not winning, even with these Ivy Leagues. What happened to these fancy Ivy Leagues? No. Okay, dictatorship. So, Fidel Castro was a dictator. Right?
Yeah.
So, are they under the assumption that the dictatorship will definitely be someone they like? Like, they think it's going to be their homie?
Yeah, they do. And
interesting.
But it's intellectually
stupid,
indefensible. It's so unbelievably indefensible.
They go to Yale.
Okay, so the minute someone is a monarch, they can do anything they want, and
you have no say at all on anything.
You're ceding all of your own power. By the way, they could, as Anna points out, if they wanted, they could turn left wing. If they wanted, and the thing that dictators most often do is they first go after their own side to solidify their power within their own faction, right? So the first ones to the gallows will be the right-wing leaders, right? And that's what Saddam did. That's what every dictator does. But yet there is now a significant movement, and you'll see thought leaders, right-wing pundits talking about monarchies and how America should be a monarchy. And why are they doing that? Why did they attack us on January 6th? Why do 56% of Republican congressmen now, or candidates running for the House, want to delegitimize democratic elections? Because they know their days are numbered. It's over. It's over, and it's not over because of minorities. It's over because of the young. Every year, the electorate gets far more progressive. Millennials and Gen Z are way more progressive than the people who are brainwashed into corporate rule by television. So as power is slipping away from them, the right wing has never, ever cared about democracy. Ever in the history of the world, in any country. The only thing the right wing cares about is power. So if they thought, hey, we'll appeal to white Christian Americans and they're the great majority and that will give us power, then they pretended to be in favor of democracy. But the minute they can't win in a democracy, they're like, no elections count. No way, Zuckerberg and Soros are doing it. We're not gonna allow it. We're just gonna take power and then damn your stupid elections. And maybe we'll go towards a monarchy. That's what people do when they don't actually believe in America.
I can't remember, did I mention that those kids go to Yale?
Yeah, but again, look, to be fair to Yale guys, it's just, that's one anecdote.
To be fair to Yale guys.
No, my point is.
Poor Yale guys.
No, but my point is, if that's happening there, it's definitely happening elsewhere. Okay.
Yeah, I know. My point is though, that these Ivy League institutions are supposed to foster the greatest minds in the world, okay? Greatest minds in the world don't look at monarchies and dictatorships and say, nailed it, nailed it. Yeah, they're supposed to be like cream of the crop, but yet they prove otherwise. Anyway, I'm gonna buy a home in Puerto Vallarta. Get ready, Mexicans, I'm coming.
I'm sure they're very happy to hear that news.
Anyway, all right, we've got an incredible story involving Saudi Arabia giving Joe Biden the middle finger over oil production. There's a lot to get to with that story, so don't miss it. We've got that, and later on we will lighten things up, have a little bit of fun. It is the second hour after all, so I'll see you there.
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like. tyt.com/join and enjoy this.
You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey, hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitzing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny. Bye. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing. I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Jank. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, AKA Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
This is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. I refer to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool, rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT? Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Dr. Rashad Richard. We got a lot happening today. But what do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable.
Rashad, great to be here. Congratulations on the new show. And I gotta let everybody know that Rashad and I go way back.
Here's the pattern that we see in all of these Karen stories. They think they own stuff they do not own. Now, where does that come from? I don't know, maybe slavery. Maybe they think they should still own black people.
This is what happens when Karens weaponize the police.
When you're used to privilege, equality seems like oppression.
It hits you in a certain way when someone is holding you against your will, treating you like you're a criminal and you're an innocent person. This is something that black people face no matter where they are.
A stronger black economy lends itself to a stronger, greater economy. Don't think it's exclusive of you, it's inclusive of you.
What's your beef with critical race theory?
It adds more fuel to the fire of the racist tendencies that we already have.
We have a generation of problem solvers that can remedy the problem if they are properly taught what the problem is.
You know who created redlining in this country? It was the white liberal.
I don't give a damn who created it. If it's a racist policy, Shelley, here's what I don't know. I don't know. See, there you go filibustering, brother. You're scared of this truth, but you're gonna get it though.
Climate is changing fundamentally, extremely, and non-linearly. It's becoming worse now. It's not when the levees burst that is the problem. It's in the anticipation of that.
So I hope every human being is safe. And by human beings, I do not include multinational corporations, especially the ones that started climate change in the first place.
What we're currently doing right now in cutting emissions is clearly not enough. There will be ramifications to what Trump is doing. I don't want people to suffer, but I feel like there's gonna be a lot of suffering because we have an imbecile as our leader.
I don't do drugs though, just weed.
back on TYT. Cenk, Anna, and Drea McClellan joins us. They just signed up by hitting the join button below on YouTube. We appreciate that. Young Turks members make this show possible and allows us to get out the truth. And of course, everybody can do it at tyt.com/join. All right, Casper.
Let's get right to our next story. No one F's with the Bidens except for Saudi Arabia. And the Democrats are really upset about it because it turns out that Saudi Arabia, which is one of the OPEC plus cartel members, which means it's an oil producing country, plans on restricting its oil production, which will mean higher gas prices at the pump. And it's really close to the midterm elections. So here are the details. The OPEC plus group said it would reduce production targets by 2 million barrels a day, equivalent to 2% of global supply, following its first in-person meeting in 2 years in Vienna. The actual cut in output is likely to be closer to 1 million barrels per day, as many weaker members have struggled to hit production targets in recent months. Now, the decision came despite extensive lobbying by the US government to get Saudi Arabia and the UAE to produce more oil. And essentially, Saudi Arabia is like, nah, bro, we're not gonna do that. And look, there are multiple reasons, in my opinion, that they would essentially manipulate the market the way that they intend to. Limited supply means what? Higher prices means more profit for them. So they already had that reason to do this. But the other reason I think is a little more interesting, which is the, I think, clear disdain the Saudis seem to have toward Joe Biden and particularly the Democratic Party. I think their timing is fascinating here.
Yeah, so this has a lot of different implications, not just about oil, not just about Saudi Arabia. So first of all, it is a giant FU to Biden and the Democratic Party, because Biden goes all the way over there, kiss their ass, and then a month before the election, they try to spike gas prices to screw over his party. The fact that it's a month before the midterm elections is 100% not a coincidence. Even if it was, then when the entire US government yells at them, which they are doing right now, going, what the hell are you thinking, right? Now they know, but of course they knew. So it's the Russians and the Saudis saying, we'll show you. And now there's the second very important component of that. In the old days, countries like Saudi and Israel that were trying to curry favor with America would be religiously nonpartisan. Right? They would give the Democrats, they'd give the Republicans, and they would say, oh, we don't get involved in American politics. We're happy to bribe both of you and then get favors back, right? Now they have made an active decision. No, we're going fully Republican because those guys will sell out to us. The Democrats are they don't obey every single command we give them. And so it's annoying us a little bit. No, we're gonna put our giant barrel of oil on the scale here and try to tip the scales in favor of the Republican Party. By the way, if you're a Republican, congrats. You're considered by foreign governments as the more willing to be traitors and work for other governments and have very little regard for your own country. But also, that's what they think of you.
Yeah.
And there's one more component here.
Okay, I just gotta say though, congratulations, Democrats who love to take bribes from oil companies and fossil fuel companies and essentially move toward renewable energy at a snail's pace because the chickens have come home to roost. Since we do not have any real reliance on renewable energy and we're still addicted to oil and fossil fuels, you have the Democratic Party, you have Biden on his knees begging Saudi Arabia and Venezuela to produce more oil, okay? And I mean, Biden's not the dictator of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia can do whatever it wants. It can put its thumb on the scale because we depend on them in this way. And so congratulations, your disgusting greed and desire to cater to fossil fuel companies in America has put us in the position that we're in. But there is a solution.
I mean, Biden could say that we're in a crisis, there's an energy crisis, and so we have to implement, for the time being, restrictions on fossil fuel companies exporting our, fossil fuels to other countries. Now, will he do it? Doubt it. I doubt he'd do that.
Yeah. So, by the way, the person who did something a little similar to that was Sarah Palin in Alaska. Got her 80% popularity. That's how she appeared on the scene many, many years ago. She basically said, "No, I'm going to take the oil that's produced in Alaska, and I'm going to have the oil companies cut an extra check over $1,000 to every citizen in Alaska because it's Alaskan oil. It's not Exxon Mobil oil, right?" And it made her intensely popular, and it was greatly ironic, of course, because then she'd be like, "Oh, I hate socialism." No, what you just did was socialism. So Biden could do the same. Of course, he never would because he's actually a Republican. But if he really was dark Brandon, he'd be like, "Oh, that's interesting. I thought we were playing ball. Oh, we're not playing ball. You guys are looking to screw me at the end here. Okay, nobody F's with the Bidens. Okay, ExxonMobil, Chevron, all of you that are taking oil from underneath American soil, you're not allowed to sell it to China or Russia or Venezuela or Europe or anyone else. You're going to sell it here, and here's the price you're going to sell it at." Oh, yeah, you can do that.
They can, yeah.
They can.
In fact, I mean, a story we did earlier, Jennifer Granholm, who's the energy secretary, has been, kind of threatening these fossil fuel companies in regard to the exports. And so she said, if you guys, we'd like you to stop exporting so much of these fossil fuels to other countries, the highest bidder, because we have some, issues here domestically. We obviously need this. And ExxonMobil immediately was like, we don't like that. We don't like that. Stop doing it. We believe in a free market, which means we believe in selling fossil fuels to the highest bidder. And if the highest bidder is a foreign country, then that's what we're gonna do.
Then what are we talking about when they say energy independence? Understand, anytime anybody says energy independence and then says we should allow the private companies to sell to China, et cetera, they're saying, oh, we're just kidding, we're total liars. It has nothing to do with energy independence in America. It has to do with supporting oil companies and their grotesque profits and dumping all their costs onto us, including climate change. So that leads to the last thing. Look, so this is also a test of how corrupt America is. Other foreign governments have calculated if we grease them enough, they'll do anything we want, and we could tell them F you in the biggest way possible, and they'll still bend to our will because their system allows for bribery. So right now, lobbyists paid by the Saudi government are spending money against Democratic candidates like Fetterman. So using Norm Coleman and his group, and ironically, it's a group that has a title about how they're Republican and Jewish, although it's not perfectly ironic. I'll get to that in a second too. So they're going and they've spent $1.5 million against Fetterman in his race, and so Dr. Oz is the beneficiary of that. So what is Dr. Oz going to do when he gets in office? He's going to kiss Saudi ass for the rest of his life. So they're going around buying all of these politicians, and basically they're now saying to the president of the United States, we think we've purchased enough of your politicians that there isn't anything you could do to us. So now the question is, are they right or are they not right? And they might be. And the other leverage that they have, if we're being honest about it, is the right-wing government of Saudi Arabia is now very much aligned with the right-wing government of Israel.
That's right.
And so they're saying Israel's political influence in America and the Saudi political influence in America and the tens of millions they both spend to buy all of our politicians, they're like, Biden, we don't think you could beat that. So let's see who's right and who's wrong. I'm worried that the Saudis are right, that corruption will win.
I agree with you on that one. All right, well, let's move on to some other news, other domestic news. Give me 1 second. Creepy Matt Walsh. So let's do it.
So here's my official answer for the record. Kiss my ass. I do not apologize. In fact, by all rights, you sick freaks should be the ones apologizing to me.
Yes. Everyone should be apologizing to Matt Walsh for thinking he was pretty creepy in defending the notion that teen
girls get pregnant. That was a statement that he had made on a radio show some years back. It was unearthed by Media Matters. And for those of you who are wondering, what did he say exactly? Well, here's a snippet of that clip.
Teen pregnancy is a new problem.
Yes.
In the sense that it's only recently that we decided that it is a problem. Recently, in the last 30 years or so, we decided that that's way too young to start a family.
Why?
And because now
divorce rates would probably go up, and once you're that young, you can't really make sure that you know.
No, girls are no.
Girls were getting married early, and marriages were lasting longer. You very rarely hear about like these relationships that go to their what is it, your diamond anniversary, your 50th anniversary, and all this. That's a dying breed of people out there.
Yeah, and those were all people that got married very young. That's why
they're still alive.
Yeah, that's why you can have someone in their 70s who's celebrating their 55th wedding anniversary because they got married when they were teenagers. So what I'm saying is that the problem is not per se teenage pregnancy, it's unwed pregnancy. That's the problem in society.
Smoothest brains in the world. Your likelihood of divorce goes up considerably the younger you are when you get married. That's what the statistics entail, but that would require these guys to read about it. But earlier in that radio episode, he also said that, women are most fertile between the ages of 16 and 24. So think about it. Creepy.
Yeah. So look, the cultural norms do change. And so is it true that 30 years ago, getting married to what we now call underage girls was more common? Yes, it was, right? So you remember Jerry Lee Lewis got married to like a 15-year-old. A bunch of musicians did it, and then Elvis Presley, and then it goes on and on and on.
Jake,
right?
Until recently, there were plenty of red states that had still allowed child marriage.
Yeah.
In this country, not 30 years ago, like today.
Well, didn't Tennessee just pass a law?
Yeah. Tennessee just passed a law saying, teenagers can get married.
They lowering the age of consent, et cetera, right? And so it's that part is true, right? But that gets to the question of, okay, yes, but what do we want now, right? And so the right wing is going around saying that everyone's a pedophile and everyone's a groomer that they disagree with, right? And then they'll say, oh, it's why? We think they like teenagers. They're making it up. They make it up about almost everybody, right? But now Matt Walsh turns around going, what? Liking teenagers is awesome as long as you get married to them and force them to be with you for the next 55 years. Okay, so look, and I think there's a difference between having relationships and getting married. I think getting married young is a disastrous idea. And so, but by the way, I wouldn't, if you're above the age of 18, I wouldn't take that right away from you. I believe in freedom, right? I think it's a terrible idea, et cetera. But are they, I don't know, is Matt Walsh claiming back then that they should get married at 16, 15? It's a
so
spectacularly bad idea.
How else would they have their golden anniversary, Cenk? Like these, how about don't get involved in other people's personal decisions, okay? These are the most intimate parts of their lives. The idea of like, let's normalize 16-year-olds getting pregnant and getting married. No, how about not? How about no? But like what Matt Walsh is the most fearful about, like his number one concern is that white people are being replaced in this country, right? He's a firm believer in that. So the idea of like more white procreation is a great thing, even if it needs to be done by force. That's who he's a creep. I don't want to really hear anything about what he thinks is creepy in regard to education or in regard to gender affirming care. I'm not interested, you're a creep. But my favorite part of his non-apology is how he like makes himself out to be some sort of like brave hero. And so get a load of this and then I'll kind of dismantle his nonsense.
I wouldn't apologize to you, soulless parasites, if I had a gun to my head. Instead, I'd rather just tell you all to piss off. I apologize for nothing. I concede nothing. I will never surrender even a single inch of ground to a pitchfork mob of degenerate morons. You know, the secret they never say out loud is that nobody is truly canceled unless they consent to it and they willingly play their assigned roles. Well, I do not consent, and I'm not going to play the game. I'm not going anywhere.
What a hero. So brave. Very, very brave. I don't know if he got this, but let me help him understand. No one was asking for your apology. The point in talking about what you said in the past and what you continue to say today is to draw attention to the fact that Matt Walsh is a creep. He has absolutely no leg to stand on when it comes to judging what is and is not creepy, when he's justifying the idea of a 16-year-old getting pregnant and getting married. 16-year-olds, I mean, they haven't even graduated high school. It's insane that he wants that while simultaneously terrorizing teachers and defaming them as groomers if they have the audacity to create a welcoming environment for all students regardless of what their identity happens to be. I don't care about his apology. In fact, I would spit at his apology. I have no interest in it. And yeah, the idea of him being canceled. You work for the Daily Wire. Yeah, you're not gonna get canceled. No one was under the assumption that he would get canceled. No one would ask for that. No one thought it would happen. You're not a hero. You're a massive, insecure loser who honestly creeps me out, probably more than any right-wing talking head imaginable.
I hadn't even heard this story, but it's obvious from his statement that he's shaken. Like, I hadn't seen that. And he's like, I'm not gonna apologize. You guys are all trying to cancel me, but I'm not gonna get canceled.
He tased an intern in the ass on camera. That was one of the videos that was unearthed by Media Matters. I mean, the guy, again, like his intern dropped his pants on camera, and Matt Walsh took a taser.
Had boxers, didn't he?
No.
Bare bottom?
Bare bottom, tased him in the ass. And by the way, the intern didn't want to be tased in the ass, but Matt Walsh kept bringing it up. Let me tase you in the ass. Let me tase you in the ass.
I bet he did.
I really want to tase you in the ass. What a creep. The dude's a creep. He should probably be investigated.
He's not gonna apologize for wanting to tase young interns in the bare bottom, okay? Not gonna do it. I don't care if I'm not gonna get canceled. Okay.
I do not consent. I do not consent to being canceled over tasing an intern in the bare ass.
Okay.
Like he's just, okay, do you boo?
Okay, look, a guy who, the white replacement theory is explicitly racist, okay? We don't want white people being replaced. Who's replacing them for what? What are we snatching them up and putting someone else in their house? No,
By the way,
no.
Can we just also address one thing? So all the abortion restrictions and abortion bans in red states. So I don't know if Matt Walsh genuinely thinks like this is great because it means, white people are gonna be having more babies. White people, not all, but if you look at percentage, white people are more likely to have the resources to go to another state or get to where they need to go to get that abortion. So if you're really thinking about it critically, which I know is difficult for someone like Matt Walsh, maybe that, plaid shirt that you're wearing, that flannel shirt you're wearing is a little tight, loosen it up and try to think a little bit. Very likely we're gonna see more women of color and girls of color being forced into carrying a pregnancy to term, which means more babies of color.
Yeah, because of socioeconomic conditions.
Yeah.
By the way, Anna, I've been thinking about that the whole time, and I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, for them to realize it, because they're not awfully smart, right? So they're like, it takes them a while, and they're like, and then when they see the numbers, oh no, we did not intend this. So like, there's like some percentage chance that the entire right wing is gonna backpedal out of the room on abortion when they realize that it creates more babies who are minorities and not white, right?
And by the way, and why do I mention the whole white replacement thing? Well, because Matt Walsh mentions it. In fact, he does so in this new video. Let's watch.
213% increase in Hispanic children in the next 40 years. That's insanity. That's actually the next 30 years.
That's like the current rate, right? Like, if they do, magically put up a wall or something of that nature, that number would probably come down a little bit, wouldn't it?
Yeah, at the current rate, that's what they're looking at. Our race of people, we're singing our swan song right now. We're the last of the Mohicans, the last of the Anglos. He's the first person to jump to that conclusion. But all of the studies we've seen, and just when you look around yourself, that's what you see. Now, there might be some people that say, well, okay, so what? Big deal. It's not, still people living here. So maybe the races mix a little bit and it's no big deal. We all move on. Well, it is because we're all dying off. That's what the problem is. It's not that we're just, as the Mexicans come in, we magically meld with them and become like them. It's not like that. It's that we are dying off just like any other species of animal does.
I mean, just imagine sitting around thinking about this all day. Yeah. Like this is what concerns them.
Yeah. No, it's well, I appreciate it because it's explicitly racist. At least they have no fig leaf at all. Oh, can you believe all these Hispanic babies? It's terrible.
Let's force more of them to have babies that they don't want, by the way.
That's the great irony too. But and then we're all dying off. Why are you dying off? Why is the increase in the number of Hispanic women having babies related to white people dying off? That doesn't make any logical sense at all, unless you think, no, white people should be in charge politically, and if there are too many minorities, we will no longer be in charge, and I want white people in charge and not Latinos, not minorities. You know what that's called? That's called racism. It's the definition, right?
Yeah.
And then finally, back to the underage girls that he wants to, or teenagers that he wants to get married before. My theory, Anna, is it's before they figure out that they shouldn't marry a right winger. Okay.
Yeah, it's before. Look, it's about power. Let's just keep it real.
Yes.
It's about power. Reproductive rights really translates to economic rights and economic freedom. Being able to make a decision about when you start a family, how you start a family as a woman is everything. And they want control. They want control over women's lives. And the idea of a 16-year-old getting pregnant and getting married, I think is appealing to men like him because that makes it incredibly difficult for that person, that girl, to have control over her own life.
100%, and that's how those two topics connect.
Yeah.
Because if women get married at 29 when they already have a really good career, they are not solely dependent on the husband, and that reduces the power of the husband to be able to do anything and say anything that he wants and control their lives.
Exactly.
And if there are a lot of Latinos and blacks in the country and other people from that are not white in the country, then that reduces the power of white men in this country. And so for the right-wing mind, it is all about power. And part and parcel of that power is the power to oppress the rest of us. And that's what connects everything Matt Walsh says.
When we come back from the break, we've got some more news for you, including a group of students who were upset at an NYU chemistry professor who was too tough. He was later fired. It's a little bit of a controversy. We've got that story and more. Don't miss it. We'll be right back.
back here during the social break. All right, Jason Ray in Super Chat says, so when does Q announce 16 as an adult, to save the kids? You think that they wouldn't do that because it would be spectacularly ironic and hypocritical? To Jason's point, of course they would. Look, anyways, we've talked about how hypocritical QAnon leaders are for sure many times. Klaus M54 writes, and if the German government coalition, renewables have been called freedom energy by both members of the Green Party and the Neoliberal Party. I love the idea of calling it freedom energy. Jason Ray also wrote in, nationalize United States oil. NR Milford, thank you for the donation. We appreciate it. Also wanted to give a shout out to Donald Bussey and Anthony McClendon, who did likewise. We appreciate it. Andrew Singh says, sending my love to TYT fams during deliveries. That's amazing. Quantum Dragon writes in, hey Yins guys, does TYT still have a Pittsburgh office? I've lived here 2 years and like to think I'm collecting your aura, LOL. Yes, we do. And a lot of our folks were out in Pittsburgh for Nat Roots, and TYT folks are all over Pittsburgh. We love that. I have no, I see what this means. Arturo writes in, Anna, Kino Bay is just as great as Vallarta. So now there are different parts of Mexico lobbying for Anna to move there.
I mean, thank God, thank God.
You guys better build a wall. There's gonna be a lot of Americans coming your way soon if the Republicans win in 24. Now, there's so many here. Raja Harris, YouTube member, saying, while looking like Matt Walsh, you can't be trusted around the underage. It's just a joke. We don't judge people based on their looks, kind of. Okay.
Judge them based on what they say and what they advocate for.
100%. Shade Dragon says, how alpha? Bitch, how about it's harder to trick women into marriage when they have autonomy, financial independence, and the wisdom of years?
Yep.
So strong. Mimi writes in, love TYT crew and family. Thank you for always giving us the raw truth and never backing down to the corruption. TYT leaves me with truth and inspiration. Thank you, Mimi. We appreciate it. Winston Sayer says, Matt, wash your ass. I don't know what it is, but it's funny. Okay, we'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Jen and Anna with you guys. Casper's got more news.
Controversy in this next story, and it has to do with standards at universities. So, a group of students apparently got their NYU chemistry professor fired for allegedly being too difficult. The class was so difficult that many of them had a hard time passing, and later, it turned out that the administration at this university decided to let him go. Now, the professor who got canned is Dr. Maitland Jones Jr., who taught organic chemistry, or OChem, for decades. And he not only wrote a 1,300-page textbook on the topic and probably forced his students to buy that specific textbook for his class, he also pioneered a new method of teaching the subject. Now, he was difficult. He wasn't a professor who believed in engaging in grade inflation, which very much is a thing. I know firsthand. Students are just kind of expected to pass by showing up and not really having the skills necessary to move on to the next phase. But nonetheless, he claims that for about a decade, his students have shown, quote, a loss of focus, which led to worse test scores, even as Jones made exams easier. Now, he said, quote, the problem was exacerbated by the pandemic. In the last 2 years, students fell off a cliff. We now see single-digit test scores and even zeros. Last spring, 82 of Jones's 350 students signed a petition against him, claiming that his organic chemistry course was just needlessly difficult. Let me just pause for a second. I think organic chemistry, by the nature of being organic chemistry, is difficult. Like I couldn't pass an organic chemistry class. I know myself, I know my skills, I know my strengths and weaknesses. OChem, weakness, okay? And so these are students who are likely gonna apply for med school. They wanna be doctors. Being a doctor is difficult. I don't know if they know that. Like, there should be zero grade inflation in any major, but especially for majors having to do with the medical field.
Yeah,
just my thoughts. I don't know.
For life and death. Look, I'm going to do a couple of caveats here. One in the beginning, one at the end. So, first caveat is sometimes teachers are pricks, and so I know I've had personal experience with one. I've told this in members-only sections before, but in high school we had this calc teacher who was just out of control, and so to give you a sense of it, so he gives me a D+, which nearly sank my ability to get into any decent school. Back then it was much easier to get into good schools. So I skated in barely by the skin of my teeth. Anyway, but maybe I deserved it, right? But I went to an Ivy League college and that same class got an A+. So obviously I knew the material. He was just giving out bad grades because either A, he thought it was funny, or the rumor was he wanted you to pay for his tutoring class. And if you didn't pay for the tutoring class, you're gonna get a disastrous grade no matter what. Now, if you have something like that against a teacher, and you could prove, hey, it's a scam, or they're doing it on purpose for some other reason, then yes, absolutely. Then do a petition, go forward, make sure you get the son of a gun, okay?
I agree with you on that, yeah.
Yes,
but here
there is no such allegation at all.
There is no such allegation.
Yeah,
in fact, I want to get to the petition because the students signed that petition, and I think the wording of the petition is important to understand where they're coming from. They're not complaining about some scam where they have to take some tutoring class in order to pass. No, they write, "We are very concerned about our scores and find that they are not an accurate reflection of the time and effort put into this class." Yeah, but look, you could put a ton of time and effort into a class if you're not grasping the material and you're failing to pass the tests or whatever assignments you have. It is what it is. You're struggling because you're not absorbing it. You're not understanding it. You're not passing, but nonetheless.
And by the way, just real quick, it's also not true. Other students and other teachers said that the kids that had the worst grades are the ones that checked the videos that explained the material the least. Right? Some of them didn't even check it at all. So a lot of them were not at all doing the work. And they're like, well, I'm already here and I'm trying to go to medical school, so I demand a good grade. Well, that's not how it used to work. But unfortunately, it looks like that's how it works now.
Yeah, I gotta share my personal experience with this because, anyway, but let me continue. The petition continues to say, "We urge you to realize that a class with such a high percentage of withdrawals and low grades has failed to make students' learning and well-being a priority and reflects poorly on the chemistry department as well as the institution as a whole." Now, this is really important to understand. The students just wanted him to change the way he handles the class. They did not call for him to get fired. That is important to keep in mind. But the university fired him. And I think the reason they fired him has to do with money, I think. Okay, so let me get to those details. Mark A. Walters, who's the director of undergraduate studies in the chemistry department, summed up the situation in an email to Dr. Jones before his firing. He said the plan would, quote, "extend a gentle but firm hand to the students and those who," this is important, "pay the tuition bills." An apparent reference to the parents, okay? So if you have the students withdrawing from the class, that means that departments tend to get resources based on enrollment. How many students are enrolled? They make decisions about whether or not they're going to offer a class based on whether or not there are enough students enrolled in that class. If you have a bunch of withdrawals, that means that you're not bringing in the students with the tuition money necessary to bolster the funds and the resources of that department. And money talks. So the estimated total cost of attendance for an on or off campus student attending NYU over the 2022-2023 school year is a whopping $83,250. Administrators at such tuition-dependent universities have a lot of incentives to make sure that their students do not fail out.
that isn't about snowflakes, but about the economics of modern higher education. Any battle in the culture war is always about the culture of economics.
Yeah, so that kind of goes to my second caveat here, which is, look, if NYU just said, hey, listen, we're just gonna be soft from now on. And so if you come to NYU, we're giving out A's like they're candy, right? We don't really care, we just wanna make money. And by the way, there's a race to the bottom, and that part is true. A lot of the schools are now getting softer and softer and softer, because if you go to undergrad and you get bad grades, then you can't get into a good medical school, or maybe any medical school, or law school, etc.
And your rankings suffer.
Yeah, and so that hurts your rankings. The people writing literally bad reviews hurts your rankings. So many of these things hurt your rankings, and what do they care about? They used to be obsessed with education. A lot of these schools are nonprofits, but it doesn't matter. It's the culture is all about money, 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 and they're in an endowment race right now, right? So all the top schools are like, I have $30 billion endowment. Oh yeah, I have $40 billion endowment. But what are you doing with that? You're supposed to make the education better,
right?
But ironically, you're making it worse, because they can't see straight. They've lost sight of the fact that you're supposed to be teaching the kids so that when they're doctors, they know what to do and they don't accidentally get people killed. Instead, you're worried about who's got the bigger, you know what, in all of these schools. So if they were honest about it, I would say, okay, that maybe at least buyer beware, right? But they're not. None of these schools admit to it when they're actually all doing it. And in fact, this professor says, look, things started changing noticeably about a decade ago.
Yeah, 10
right?
years ago.
And all of a sudden, now all the kids expected really good grades so they could do their next part of their career. Well, there's a good way to get really good grades, by studying hard.
Yes.
That's how it works.
Yeah, and look, I obviously don't teach chemistry, but I noticed this issue with journalism classes where students would submit their assignments, articles, their reports, and a lot of them had difficulty even constructing sentences, right? And so I would grade them appropriately based on what they were submitting. And these are upper division journalism classes. I'm not gonna pass someone who is not ready to move on to the next level. It's not fair to the next lecturer or professor, and it's also not fair to the student. They need to be equipped with the skills necessary. So one of the things that I actually ended up doing to prevent them from failing is I made like a separate group of students where I worked, and I worked extra hours to work with them more intimately to make sure that they had the skills necessary to pass, right? And luckily that worked out. But I do remember, when they would get grades that they deserved, they would be furious. One of them even went immediately to the head of the department to complain about how I'm too tough. And it's like, I just want to make sure you know how to construct sentences when you write your articles.
No, I know a decent amount of professors, and they're all saying the same thing. There's a sense of entitlement now, and you know what it comes from? The customer's always right, because now they're teaching the students like their customers. And to be fair to the students and the parents, they're paying
a lot.
Business schools now, on average, the top business schools cost $200,000 by the time you're done with them. So if you're paying $200,000 for something, you want good value, and good value is being able to show a report card that's got really good grades on it, whether you earned it or not, because you paid for it.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the phenomenon that's underlying this particular story. And he had just so you're clear, he was not tenured. He was a brilliant professor who's been doing this a long time. But he was on a yearly contract, so they could end his contract. But what that does is it sends a message to all the other professors.
Yes.
You better not give out any bad grades. It doesn't matter how much they suck and how much they don't know the material. Give them a B and move on.
And look, tenured professors, it's becoming a thing of the past, and it's pretty gross because that academic freedom that comes along with being tenured is really important. But also, universities, regardless of how much they charge for tuition, are relying more and more on adjunct professors who don't even really have yearly contracts or any real protections, and they barely get paid anything, but they still do the same amount of work that a tenured professor would do. Finally, we want to know what you think. We have a poll on this at tyt.com/polls. Was NYU's decision to fire a chemistry professor over a student petition justified? Yes or no?
Yeah, and I'll add one last thing, which is that in law school, I tried hard the first semester, did pretty well, and then afterwards decided to coast because I decided I wasn't going to be a corporate lawyer. And there was one professor who caught me and gave me a bad grade. I've always respected him the most. He was right. I was dogging it, and when you're dogging it, you should get a bad grade. That's how it used to work, and that's how it should work.
When we come back from the break, we'll give you an update on the Dominion lawsuit against Fox News. There's some pretty revealing information about what the head of Fox News was up to and what she was saying about the election denialism. And we'll give you those details when we come back.
All right, back on TYT. First of all, hey, success. Remember we did the petition to get Nancy Pelosi to not include the Manchin side deal in the continuing resolution? She didn't include it. We won on that. So the Senate took it out. Manchin asked him to take it out, but that's because he was going to lose. Was that strictly the TYT audience signing that petition? Absolutely. No, I'm kidding. Of course, it wasn't just us. But hey, progressives won, and we were part of that win. We were, if you sign that petition, you were part of the people who built enough pressure for Manchin to back down. That's amazing. That's amazing. It's not often that progressives get wins. I love that you participated and you got the win on that. Let's keep it going. So let's do more petitions. Let's get more actions, and let's put more pressure on the politicians to do the right things. I love you guys for taking part in that. Okay, now. By the way, the Manchin side deal is not completely dead, but our petition was taken out of the budget resolution so that it's not in a must-pass bill. And if it's not in a must-pass bill, it's much harder for it to pass. So we did accomplish that mission. All right, and now let's go to the next mission. This is not about a petition, but this started on Indisputable. Rashad Ritchie was talking about Jackson, Mississippi. They have a terrible water problem there, and they keep having to buy bottles of water. It's crazy, and so we're trying to jump in and help. We're doing two things. One, we're getting them water right away because they need it right now. And we're also getting them water testing kits to make sure when the government tells them that the water is okay to drink, that it's true. So tyt.com/relief. There's still a lot of money that we could raise there to get them the water. So this goes straight to the water and the test kits, tyt.com/relief. We'd love it if you take part. All right, now let me go to member comments. Sunshine Dragon song writes in, nobody F's with the Bidens except Saudi Arabia and Joe Manchin and Krista Sinema, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
A lot of people, yeah.
Yes, it's very similar to a tweet that Anna had earlier. Rich Thurman writes in, Cenk, there are preponderance of bad teachers in the chemistry departments. These people want to get grants to do research. They're not interested in teaching. Also, if you're a pre-med, you are made fun of by the IT chem professors. So look, that's an interesting perspective, and thank you for sharing that. One of the other complaints against that teacher, though, was that he was, I think they said condescending and what was it? Oh, demanding. Yeah, the professors are supposed to be demanding. Hey, I don't know. It's a new world.
And look, look, I don't know about all chemistry teachers, but we're not talking about all chemistry teachers or professors. We're talking about one specific professor, and the heart of the complaint was that he was too hard. His class was too difficult.
Yeah, so. Lynn writes in, to your point, Anna, as a teacher, I realized if too many of my students did not do well on a test, it was my fault, not their fault. So that's interesting. That's a different perspective. And Lynn is actually looking at it in balance, right? Which I love. And that's why it's not a perfectly easy question. But on the other hand, a lot of other teachers are saying people are skating. In fact, I'm out of time. There was such a good quote. Square Peg in a Round Hole said, my oldest son is getting his master's degree in organic chemistry. It's taking him years because, yeah, organic chemistry is hard. Not everyone is capable of doing well in that course of study. Another great point. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna and Terrence Collins with you guys. Terrence just hit that join button below the video on YouTube. We really appreciate it. Everybody else can do tyt.com/join. And on Twitch, Yuri Lino, I have to read this comment, said, Cenk, I love you, brother. Well, right back at you. All right, Casper.
Well, we should give you an update on the lawsuit that Fox News is facing from Dominion Voting Systems, because we're learning a lot about what the executives over at Fox News were up to. Apparently, the head and CEO of Fox News felt that the election denialism that was spouted by hosts on her own network was crazy. In fact, she referred to it as the crazies, yet allowed it to continue airing on Fox News. And we're learning about this thanks to the lawsuit that has been filed against Fox by Dominion Voting Systems. It's a defamation lawsuit, and during these proceedings, they're trying to get access to the contracts for the various hosts that spouted that the election was stolen from Donald Trump, and the real winner was Trump, not Joe Biden. Now, as a result of all this election night pressure, Fox News CEO Suzanne Scott warned colleagues, quote, "We can't give the crazies an inch." So the election night was an interesting night because remember, Fox was the first to call Arizona for Biden. And Trump was furious about that. There was a lot of pressure from Trump and all his cronies to avoid doing that. But Suzanne Scott was like, no, we can't give an inch. Give the crazies an inch. Now, again, that's according to a Dominion Voting Systems lawyer. The company is seeking $1.6 million from Fox News over defamation, over the false allegations that Dominion had committed election fraud. The trial is set for April. Here are a few more details. Dominion's attorney, Justin Nelson, revealed Scott's remarks in a court proceeding earlier this week in which he argued that Dominion's legal team is entitled to receive the employment contracts of 13 Fox News executives, including Scott. And luckily, in a ruling that happened this past Wednesday, Delaware Superior Court Judge Eric Davis affirmed that Dominion should receive the contracts. And the reason why the statement from Fox News' CEO is so important is because when you are moving forward with a defamation lawsuit, it is up to you to prove, right, that the organization, Fox News in this case, knew that what they were spouting on their airwaves or on their shows was a lie. And in this case, Suzanne Scott warned colleagues, we can't give the crazies an inch. She called the election denialists the crazies. So she knew it was wrong, but after election night, as we all know, various hosts on Fox News continued spouting these lies.
And not only did they give him an inch, once they gave him an inch, they had to give him a mile. There's comments that producers internally saying we can't let Shapiro say these things, and yet they let her say those things.
Same with Lou Dobbs and Maria Bartiromo.
Yep. Yeah. And so, but I think the most interesting part of the story is the fact that the CEO of Fox and probably almost all their other executives think that their audience is nuts. They just think, hey, we're making money off these suckers. Who cares what we're selling, right? If they want lunatic conspiracy theories and we're making a buck off of it, well then let's give them lunatic conspiracy theories because that's what we're selling. So, oh yeah, vaccines, I don't know if they work. Or maybe it was Fauci and Bill Gates that implanted a chip in your head. Who cares? You like it? You like it? Give me money. Give me money, okay? So they're literally selling crazy. And they know it. It's her quote. And so look, I don't know if she's also referring to Dobbs and Jeanine Pirro and Bartiromo as also crazy.
But that really doesn't matter. That doesn't even matter because she knows that the big lie is crazy, right? Yeah. That's what she's referring to.
And it's kind of like car salesmen, right? It doesn't really matter if they think the car is great or not, right? As long as they're moving product.
Yep.
And so these folks were moving product. And when they said, hey, the election was stolen, etc., more people watched. When they said the election wasn't stolen, less people watched.
Right.
So they know that they're selling crazy, and they want to be better at selling crazy so they get more viewers, more profits. So Dominion says, well, but there's a price to be paid for that because you're lying about us. And now it's fairly clear that you're doing it on purpose, and that's textbook defamation.
In fact, according to Nelson's remarks at the hearing, and Justin Nelson, of course, is the lawyer for Dominion, senior Fox News executives interceded to try to block Fox Business stars Lou Dobbs and Maria Bartiromo from having Trump's campaign attorneys, Sidney Powell and Rudy Giuliani, on their shows to repeat such lies. In late 2020, Dobbs and Bartiromo hosted Trump's advocates to make those accusations. But I guess they didn't intercede hard enough because those broadcasts continued to happen. The lies continued to be repeated on these shows. Later, Lou Dobbs got fired, which I actually forgot about. So in December of 2020, Dobbs contended on air that Trump's opponents within the government had committed treason, and later suggested any action by a Republican office holder to uphold Biden's victory might have been criminal. And again, he was fired later. His departure from the network was hastily announced the day after another election software company, Smartmatic, filed its own $2.7 billion lawsuit against Fox for defamation surrounding similarly false accusations of fraud.
Yeah, I remember that because we did a segment on it and I said, oh, he's a sacrificial lamb. When they go to trial, they're gonna say, well, we fired Lou Dobbs.
But too late.
Okay, but number one, they allowed him to say all those things and they fired him afterwards. But secondly, he was a sacrificial lamb. They still kept Shapiro, they kept Bartiromo, they kept the biggest problems of all, Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, right? And so, look, if you're a right winger though, and you're mad at the Fox News executives for thinking that you're crazy, well, what did you want them to think? You know, they told you the truth that Biden had won Arizona. You hated it. And you swarmed Newsmax and OAN, and you said you're never going to watch Fox News again. They told, and then they got reluctant to tell you that he won the overall election. That's also part of this lawsuit. They knew that he had won the last remaining state that he needed to. Biden had. Everybody else called that first. Fox waited on purpose to call it last because they were taking too much heat. They covered up the facts because their audience doesn't like facts. They like nonsense. They like things that are emotionally pleasing that aren't anywhere near true. And so this case is super important because are we going to have a country that says the media can say anything they want? It doesn't have to be true, and they could know that it's not true. And as long as it sells, they can say it. And so,
well, I mean, Alex Jones,
we don't know.
No, we do know. Alex Jones has learned the hard way that you can't say anything you want. You can't go around defaming people and get away with it just because you want to make a profit off of making other people's lives miserable, off of literally ruining the reputations of other people and directing violence toward them. And so, I mean, I think Dominion and Smartmatic have an excellent defamation case against Fox News and others. We'll see how it plays out. But I do think that statement from Fox News' CEO was damning.
Yeah, no question. Even the Fox executives know their audience is nuts.
So, all right, we've got a few more minutes left. Cenk loves reading comments, so that's what he's going to do now.
Okay, but can we tell them real quick what's in the bonus episode?
Yes, so it turns out that a character in Scooby Doo happens to be gay. The right wing is doing what the right wing does best. Exactly, so we'll talk about that and make fun of them. And then other fun things that I forgot about, so I'm gonna look it up.
All right, sounds good. Look, somebody wrote it in, I can't find it now, but they said, hey Cenk, because you were telling us how great Too Strong coffee tastes, I got Justice Jolt, and then he wrote, I didn't like it. Okay, so why am I telling you that? Well, number one, if you read it in, you go read anything in the iPad, okay? But no, there was a twist though. He then said, you know what, I like cold brew. So I was like, oh, let me try Justice Jolt in a cold brew. And he said, damn, that was the best thing I ever tasted. So we didn't necessarily even intend it that way, but apparently it's great in cold brew.
Nice.
Okay, so, but I love the taste of Uprising and Rebel Roast and Justice Jolt. I love those. So check them out, Too Strong Coffee. twostrongcoffee.com/TYT, twostrongcoffee.com/TYT. I love having progressive sponsors like Too Strong Coffee and Aspiration, trying to do good in the world. Too Strong Coffee's given over $20,000 to progressive causes. Okay, Dragon Flying 420 wrote in, Anna, loving the Nefertiti look, killing it.
Oh, thank you. I wasn't even going for that look, but I appreciate it.
Yeatwood Mac writes in, I would rather listen to a decade of Try Guys drama than listen to Matt Walsh ever again.
What are Try Guys?
That's another YouTube stars. Okay, but I will tell you one more thing. When I went to Yale, a bunch of the students said, I watched Ben Shapiro, then I watched you guys, and you guys got me off of those guys. So it does work. All right, bonus episode. We'll see you guys there.
Hey everyone, Matteo Scarapore here.